we've probably failed more Kobe Bryants than any other autograph.
1 million autographs. Wow.
And Wilt Chamberlain looks at his handler and looks at me and goes, "You got to pay me, man." You know who the forger's name is?
Jeez.
Goes, "You just got a Wilt Chamberlain autograph for $35.
Today we're joined by Jimmy Spence, the third from JSA. You can find him on Instagram at Spence414. And you can also find JSA on Instagram at JSA LOA. Jimmy, thanks for coming on the show, man, on such short notice. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Matt. It's a pleasure. We've been doing business for a while, so it's finally cool to meet you through, I guess, Skype or
Right.
this electronic platform.
Nope, nobody's getting anything today. We don't have to do the elbow bump or nothing, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love doing business with JSA, and I love the Florida office. And Eric's the guy I usually deal with out there. So shout out to Eric, man, for always taking care of me. Definitely appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But before we get started here, why don't you, for those who maybe have been living under the rock or just getting started in the autograph collecting business, who is JSA and what do you guys do?
So JSA stands for James Spence Authentication. My father started the company back in May of 2005. This was after he launched our competitor in 1999. He helped launch PSA DNA, and once his contract was up, he decided to do something on his own and be his own boss. And he launched that in Orwigsburg, Pennsylvania, which is just north of Philadelphia. We moved the office to New Jersey, and then about, I would say, 6 years later, we decided to open up an office in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So now we have two offices: Parsippany, Fort Lauderdale. What we do is we authenticate signatures. If you're ever skeptical about an autograph that your grandfather gave you, or you purchased, or you got it as a gift, and you're unsure of the authenticity, especially if it's a high-valued item, I highly suggest you get it properly authenticated by a reputable company. There's very, very few of us out there to pick from, and we'll be able to tell you if it's authentic. If it is deemed authentic, we give it a JSA letter of authentication, or if it's a lesser valued item, we issue a certificate of authenticity. And then once you have that, it's instantly marketable all over the world. Any major auction house accepts our letters of authentication, and more importantly, you're able to sell it for maximum value.
That's the question I get all the time about authentication, and people are shocked that they don't have an authentication company in their city. I have to tell them, like, no, JSA is in Florida and New Jersey. And they're like, how do I get them the item? I was like, what do you mean, how do you get them out? You put it in a box and you ship it to them, or you wait till they come and do a show in your area, which obviously hasn't been doing much lately, but people are shocked, like, especially people in Canada. I get calls all the time. They're like, what do you mean there's no one in Saskatchewan? I was like, no, there's no one. There's literally 3 people out there that do this thing,
Yeah, it's crazy. And we get that question all the time from the UK. I've got a lot of inquiries in Australia, a lot of job inquiries too. How do I become a JSA authenticator? I can do this out in Australia. Well, you need to hang out with us for a few years. In order to become a JSA authenticator, I primarily look for collectors. Most of the time I'm hiring my customers just because I see their professionalism. I see their aptitude. And if I can pinpoint that, there's always room to build off of that. There's no authenticator out there that just came out of Harvard that was taught autograph authentication. I mean, it's primarily taught by the big 3 companies, and you need a mentor, and you need a lot of patience, and you need to absolutely be passionate about autographs. Otherwise, the job's not for you. But we've had a lot of people come in and out. Some people don't have the aptitude. Some people impress us within the first year. They pick up on Mickey Mantle autographs, Joe DiMaggio autographs, Ted Williams, Michael Jordan. Those are primarily the ones that you need to know very well, and just because we see so many of them.
Yeah, you would think they would teach autograph authentication now in school better than the German polka history that people are coming out with those degrees. At least the autograph authentication is somewhat applicable in the real world now.
Maybe in our industry, at least, it's better than memorizing Shakespeare. I remember doing that, and I was like, what am I doing? Why am I memorizing this and not interpreting it?
I had a course in college one time called Religion and Film. And it was one day a week on Monday nights at 9 o'clock. I could not pull myself to get to that class 1 day a week. That's how lazy I was in college. I mean, I just hated that class. I would never do it again.
Yeah, I had a few of those that I had to retake because they were required for me to graduate.
So start with, since we're talking about autograph authentication, personally for you, what's like the coolest autograph that you've ever authenticated?
You know, it's a very, very tough question, and I get that question a lot, Matt. Recently, I saw one of the greatest baseballs I've ever seen submitted, and I was fortunate I was able to personally authenticate this one. This wasn't, sent to the New Jersey office, or this wasn't, submitted at the national. This was submitted at our office in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. On the sweet spot, it had Christy Mathewson, which is one of the greatest pitchers of all time, died in the late 20s. On the south panel, it had Babe Ruth, and on the north panel, it had Lou Gehrig. So the trifecta of probably the most expensive baseball autographs out there on one baseball. It was on an official National League baseball. It was on a Hadler baseball dating, from the late 1918 to 1922. It had everything right about it. The autographs were perfectly placed on the panels. Christy Mathewson was smack on the sweet spot. It wasn't deteriorating. I don't even know what it would be worth. The gentleman that submitted it ended up finding it in an attic in his parents' place in New York, and has held on to it ever since, until his buddy told him, listen, you need to have that authenticated by JSA and go forward with this. But it has to go into auction. And it's that special that we've never seen anything like it, and who knows? It could be worth 20,000. It could be worth 50,000. It could be worth 200,000. I have absolutely no idea in this crazy market.
It seems like every story I hear about somebody finding something in somebody's attic is in New Jersey or New York. It's only in those two states that they find stuff like that. Everything is stored there. All the cool stuff is just sitting up there.
You got to expand. Have an office in Parsippany, New Jersey, right next to the JSA.
Man, too many restrictions in New Jersey.
Right.
So you talked about authenticating this baseball. That's a super expensive baseball. Walk me through the process of how do you guys walk me through a step by step. You get this expensive ball in. You want to make sure that you do your due diligence on your end because you're putting your name and your brand behind it. What's the authentication process go through on an expensive item like that?
So it's formally submitted. The customer fills out a submission form, allows us to take possession of the ball or the piece and properly authenticate it. For something like that, we request at least 3 hours. I make sure that not only myself is present for the authentication, but I also want to have a few other authenticators with me to add their expertise. I mean, it's not just James Spence's opinion; it's well-trained authenticators at JSA. So we'll have other authenticators present there. First, when we look at an item, we try to date the item because it's very, very important when you're authenticating an autograph that you're looking at that era of signature. People's signatures evolve over time. Matt, you can look at your Social Security card, and it probably looks nothing like your autograph right now. So to look at a Babe Ruth signature from 1920, it looks a lot different from one signed later in his life in 47 or, the year of his death in 48. So we try to date the item, and it's very, very easy with baseballs because we were able to chart baseballs of when they were manufactured, official American League, official National League. So depending on the stamping, where the stamping is located, the stitching, the president, we're able to pinpoint that era, and we're able to focus in on that style of signature. So we do that, and then also we have high magnification loops. We're able to determine if the ink is live, meaning hand signed, not done by an auto pen or a facsimile or anything like that. That's very, very important, especially right now in the industry. Matt, I'm sure you've seen so many different inkjet laser printed Babe Ruth baseballs for sale on eBay. Some people are selling them, trying to sell them legitimately, but what they're doing is they're selling them to another dealer who then tries to sell them as legitimate. And they're very, very hard to detect unless you have them in your hand or you put them under a lit loop and you could see the dot matrix around that autograph. So very important to date the item, make sure that it's live ink, And then we compare and contrast the autograph to our exemplar database, which is close to 1 million autographs.
1 million autographs in there. Wow. That is insane. I thought it would be maybe 10,000 or something like that. But I mean, that is absolutely insanity. It's just, guess it shows the amount of autographs that people are submitting nowadays.
Crazy. Just for instance, Matt, Derek Jeter, for instance, we have 5,000 exemplars on just Derek Jeter's autograph. That's stuff, all in chronological order. We have forgeries on file. We have stuff that's questionable, stuff that we went inconclusive on. We have facsimiles. We have stuff that we know the forger. We know who the forger's name is.
Jeez.
That it gets that wild. We don't announce that kind of stuff.
No.
But we keep it, in house, and it's very important to see where the forgery is coming from. What forgery ring, because they're all over the place, and not just the United States. Some forgeries are coming out of Taiwan and China. They're very, very sophisticated.
Talk about that for a second. Is this? I know you say it's very sophisticated, but is this not tied to a certain area? Is there someone new coming on the block all the time? I mean, are you guys having to constantly be keeping up on new information from all these kind of forgers coming in? Or are you getting tips from other people? How does that all kind of come to fruition on your end?
So yeah, that's a very good question. So we have guys all over the country. Not everybody works at the Florida office. Not everybody works at the New Jersey office. We have a lot of part-time guys that are working in California, in Washington State. And a lot of these guys have been chasers for decades. So they know their area. They know the bad guys in their area. And they're able to feed information to us, very valuable information. And they also know, what Anthony Davis signs. He might not sign in black pen. He'll always go for blue Sharpie or whatever. I mean, this kind of information that chasers have is just extremely valuable to our calculation and our conclusion. And but to keep up with the new forgeries out there, we do get tips. There's a lot of good guys in this industry that truly care about it. A lot of dealers, a lot of auction houses, and if they see something funky, or what's even more important, if they're selling unsigned vintage baseballs to a particular person over and over again, I mean, the writing is on the wall.
Right. Why do you need so many vintage baseballs? Nobody's collecting these things unsigned, really,
It's become a hobby to collect unsigned baseballs, but not in that quantity. If you want 12 official American League William Heritage balls, all blank, I mean, let's face it, unless you have that particular selling outlet to sell unsigned baseballs, I think there's some suspicion going on there.
So what would you say in 2020 is still, I guess, the most forged autograph that you see out there? You mentioned probably Jeter, Jordan. I would assume those are probably on the list there. If you can, share with us some of the ones that you see, hey, this is the one we see constantly.
So the ones to be extremely careful of, especially this year, he died so abruptly earlier this year. He kicked off 2020 for us, was Kobe Bryant. I don't think next to Michael Jordan, we've probably failed more Kobe Bryants than any other autograph.
Wow.
There's just that much crap out there, and they're good. They're very good forgeries. They're very terrible forgeries, and there's some in between. And just because it has a certificate of authenticity, from Joe Blow's card shop, doesn't mean that it's real. And, I've watched numerous podcasts that you've done, and you've explained that very, very well. Just what to watch for when buying memorabilia. So that's very educational for the public. But yeah, I mean, Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, who else?
Tom Brady never signs. I mean, stop it, people. I mean, I don't know, probably 1 out of 100 autographs you must be a legitimate autograph for Tom Brady. It seems like.
What's has become a huge influx of real autographs, though, are those books that he signed.
And now those, yes, I've actually submitted one of those to you.
Thousands of those books. So that's probably the most for sure. I mean, I'm sure there's forgeries out there.
No, those are good, but IP autographs on a helmet or a football, almost next to nothing, I think.
If they're signed nicely, especially. I mean, if you look at a Tom Brady in person autograph just off the fly, if he's signing for a kid, it looks like absolute garbage. You wouldn't even be able to decipher that it's Tom Brady's autograph.
Floppy.
Very.
So how does that work on your end? You know, it seems like the autographs have been deteriorating over time with all these athletes, and they get shorter and shorter. I assume that makes your job harder to authenticate these types of autographs. You know, you get the guys like Mickey Mantle and Ted Williams. Like, those are pretty straightforward, I would think, for guys like you. Who are the toughest autographs to authenticate right now, as far as from a legibility standpoint?
You know, a lot of the hockey players, they just don't give any type of substance to their autograph, any type of letter structuring. A lot of the Hollywood entertainment celebrities, you know, the Ryan Reynolds. I don't know if you ever saw his autograph before. Yeah. Although he does sign, I heard he's a very nice guy. He wants to sign for everybody, so you know he's going to give his check mark to everybody. That makes it extremely difficult to authenticate. And most of the time, you know, when we see those style autographs, those slop autographs, we'll just push them back. I mean, there's no point in putting our reputation on the line, even if, you know, it comes from a very reputable chaser or a, you know, reputable auction house or company. It's all about the autograph, and we look at those objectively, regardless of whose sticker's on there previously or where it comes from. An autograph, when it's submitted through JSA, that's what we're focusing on.
Yeah, I hear that a lot in the industry. You kind of touched on it for a second, you know, that these authenticators out there will look at the sticker first and then kind of look at the autograph. You just said that you guys don't look at the sticker at all. Is that the case with any item? Let's say I submit a Fanatics Tom Brady autograph, right? Which I don't know why anybody would do that, right? But I'm sure some people do. Yep. Do you guys don't look at the hologram at all, or how does that work there? Is that just a piece of the puzzle?
It's a part of it. I mean, it's provenance, but again, you know, people are. I mean, there's deceitful people out there that are trying to forge those holograms, the UDA holograms, right. The player holograms. So it's not an instant yes when we look at a reputable company like Fanatics' hologram. We have to do our diligence. This you know. Chris Bryant bat was submitted for authentication purposes, and we're looking at the autograph and making sure that, you know, we believe it to be real.
So talk about security for just a second, and I'm not meaning like, you know, your security guards outside of JSA's office here, but, you know, getting your holograms, you know, faked off is probably the biggest concern of really any authentication company. You know, getting LOAs copied and all that kind of junk. You know, the LOAs, I really love those just because I think those are almost near impossible to do, you know, because you got the exact autograph on there, you've got your sticker on the item, or you can put on the LOA. What is JSA doing to make sure that when people get something authenticated, that there's not going to be any issues with, you know, those holograms and those certificates of authenticity?
So yeah, you explained the JSA letter of authentication is near impossible to forge, and you have to have access to our in-house database. You have to upload the exact autograph that we've authenticated. It's printed on our watermark stationery. It's got a very detailed description of the baseball. We don't just put Babe Ruth signed baseball. I've seen our competitor do that, and I'm like, you're setting yourself up for a disaster there. We go ahead, we put the type, we put the era, we put the writing implement, we put the color of the how many signatures there are, if there's any abrasions. I mean, we go into extreme detail. We've been doing that since 2005. What we've been noticing is a lot of people attempting to forge our hologram, our certificate of authenticity. And this was before we moved to a holographic hologram. We had, you know, just a standard, you know, tricolor print of the certification label. Now, you're able to still go onto our website, type the alphanumeric code in. It comes up as Drew Brees signed photograph. But our cure to that is to constantly evolve, Matt. We change our certificates of authenticity every series. You'll see a different style artwork. It's not the same artwork every time. So every letter series, you'll see a different group of artwork. Also, we try to implement, you know, as much information as possible on those basic certs. You know, if it's Rawlings Official American League Baseball, we'll put that in there. And we're not done evolving. I mean, we want to take this to the next level. We're going to continue to, you know, do everything we can to make sure that our proprietary information is secure.
So you talked a little bit about the competitors out there, and I don't want to bring them up here. This is not about them, but your competitors out there are card graders, and that has become a huge business in 2020.
Yeah.
Are there any plans for JSA to get into the card grading industry?
I can't say that we're never going to get involved in it, Matt, but we're so inundated with autograph submissions, and that's our focus, and that's the Spence passion, that it's hard to divert from that. We're autograph guys. What do they say? Jack of all trades, master of none. We want to be so focused, laser focused in autographs, and we consider ourselves the best in the industry. And we want to continue it that way, and we want to, possibly go into other different sectors, possibly, it's hard for us to, stop what we're doing and kind of focus on something that we're not familiar with, that we're not passionate about. I can't say that's going to happen in 5 years, but as of right now, we're so focused on autograph authentication. It's going to be that way for a bit.
And you obviously have a Florida office and a Jersey office. Are there any plans to open an office where people can submit stuff out in the West Coast or in Midwest?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take some time. Our focus is hiring. Actually, we want to hire more people on the West Coast. We have a few out there, but there's more of a demand for JSA in that area, and we're looking to hire people in California, in both San Francisco area and LA, Arizona, Nevada. Places where we just we can't keep up with the demand, and we're looking to hire people in Canada as well.
Yeah, that seems like a big white space in the collectible industry, I think, is outside of the United States, especially going back to the card grading, like Europe too. Like they have such a pain in the butt to get cards graded out there. And I'm assuming the same thing with getting autographs authenticated.
All the time. Yeah, we get those questions a lot from the UK. And to help, our friends out there overseas, what we're going to be doing is we're launching JSA First Look, which is an electronic platform where you can load any image, any link to anything on eBay, and you get our precursory review before you buy that item. So that's going to come out in second quarter of 2021. In addition, we are going to be encapsulating. We're going to be starting with index cards. We're going to be moving to postcards. And we're going to have a special, we've looked at all the encapsulation units that our competitors are using. And we took, the good from everything that's out there that people like. And the slab is going to be beautiful. It's going to have UV protectant. We're also going to, our flip is going to have, it's going to be horizontal to the autograph. So you don't have to move your head every time you want to read that it's, a Ruth Bader Ginsburg autograph. So it's going to be, you're going to be able to see that, and it's going to frame a lot better, because I see these encapsulated units and they're in a frame and it just looks aesthetically wrong. And a lot of people crack them out to put them in a frame.
Another company just came out with their new slab for card grading a couple days ago. Sports Guaranteed, Authentic. I'm messing up their name here, but it was like green, and it was really weird. And I posted it on my Instagram, and some of the comments were like, "Oh man, it looks like a kid designed it," And I think that's why people like certain slabs. Is obviously, yes, they prefer the authentication with it, but they like the way the slab looks in their collection.
So important, aesthetics, along with it being secure. I mean, you don't want to be able to open up these slabs with your fingernails or an easy pry. You want to make sure that this stuff is well protected, and it's not going to be copied somewhere else. And I've heard that over the years, and I've seen our competitors constantly evolve their slabs. So we're keeping that all into consideration. But yes, CGC, the comic book grading company, I believe right. That's what I'm talking about. Yep. They have the best reputation in comic books. I mean, they're the leader. If you ever want to get a Superman 1 graded, you have to go to those guys. And
big money, man. I don't know who you think I am here, man. I'm just the sports autograph guy.
You never know. Maybe you open that office in New Jersey, and maybe one of them will pop up.
Oh man, that's crazy, man. Well, hey, Jimmy, man, I appreciate you coming on. This has been an awesome opportunity. I love hearing stories about authentication. Before we let you go here, though, I want to hear what's your funniest, coolest autograph-related story about maybe meeting a certain athlete that you can share without offending the censors of YouTube.
No, it was back in the late '90s. I was at a card show with my father. I used to go to the card shows all the time. I mean, since I was an infant, he brought me to card shows. But this was in the late '90s, and Wilt Chamberlain was there, signing autographs, and I was getting an autograph for one of my father's buddies. So I walked up to the autograph ticket booth, and it was a multi-signed basketball that he needed. It was like a Hall of Famer basketball. So I was like, I don't know, I was like 12 or 11 years old, and I showed them the basketball. I said, I just need a ticket for this. So they sold me a ticket, and it was only like $35, right? Meanwhile, Wilt Chamberlain's autograph price was like $100 and something at that time. And so I only bought this one ticket, and I walked up and I gave Wilt Chamberlain the basketball, and I forgot to give his handler the ticket. So he signed the basketball, then I handed the handler the ticket, and the handler looks at me and he goes, "Kid," he goes, "you only paid for a multi-signed add-on ticket. Where's your original ticket?" And Wilt Chamberlain's looking at me, and Wilt Chamberlain's this giant human being, and I'm looking at the handler. I'm like, I don't have any money. Like, I just bought this ticket. I was told to get this. And Wilt Chamberlain looks at his handler and looks at me. He goes, "You got to pay me, man." And I'm like, I don't have any money. And quickly the handler diffused the situation, and he said, "Wilt, don't worry about it. We'll take care of this one." And then the handler looks at me and he goes, "Kid," he goes, "you just got a Wilt Chamberlain autograph for $35. So I think I might be the only person alive to get a Wilt Chamberlain autograph for $35 and meet the guy, shake his hand, and yeah.
Now the question is, do you still have that item?
No, so it was for somebody else that I was getting it for, and
do they still have the item?
Story, they might still have the item. I gotta ask my father who this person was, but yeah, it was a scary moment because I saw Wilt get mad, but it's a funny story to tell.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than being around an athlete for the first time who is like an idol of yours, and you're not quite sure how to act, especially as you're a kid. I remember when I was in a elevator with Pudge Rodriguez one time. I was 12 years old, and he had just came out in the Sports Illustrated magazine. And of course, as a kid, I brought that Sports Illustrated magazine everywhere. So I flew out there, and I was like, "Pudge, can I run up to my hotel and get this magazine?" And he was like, he waited for me. It was the coolest thing ever. I went up and got the magazine and came back down, and he was such a funny guy. I don't know if you ever met Pudge, but he is such a funny little dude. Dude too. He's so tiny.
Yeah, I've met him before. He's awesome. He does wonderful things in Puerto Rico. I mean, during the past few hurricanes, he's done everything, supporting Puerto Rico unannounced too. I mean, he wanted to keep his name silent. But yeah, just a stand-up guy and one of the greatest catchers of all time, arguably.
Absolutely. All right, well, you guys can follow Jimmy on Instagram there at Spence414. And then you can also follow JSA at JSA LOA. Jimmy, I appreciate you taking some time here, man. Thank you again, man. I always appreciate it.
Absolutely, Matt. Thanks for having me. We got to do it again.
All right, hey, everybody. Thank you again for watching that interview with Jimmy. What a great guy. Definitely appreciate him coming on. I'm sure he's got even better stories than some of the ones that he shared. But if you guys need something authenticated, please be sure and use JSA. Again, I love that Florida office, but you can also send stuff up to their New Jersey office, or you can wait until they come into your town to do a show. They do have their show schedule on their website. Also, please visit my website, powersportsmemorabilia.com. Also, give me a follow over there on Instagram at Powers Autographs, and I will see you on the next episode.